stars who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing. This is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hi.
Oh my God, welcome back.
We three are together again. After what seems like weeks, months.
It has been a long time, but we miss you.
Miss you too, sweetie. And you, Tom Campbell, our creative director, you've been away on a secret mission taping. Well,
Yes.
how secret can it be?
But I've been working. I've been coming in the early mornings and doing our record.
Right.
I try to be every woman.
And you have been gallivanting across
Asia. Off in
China
and things like that. Yes.
Very exciting.
James is just under house arrest or something. He's always here.
I've been chained to my desk.
Well, for those of you listening to the show for the first time,
Why?
we count down the top 10 things that made us go
Wow.
this week.
Yes.
Without further ado then, right?
Yeah.
Number 10, Tom.
Number 10.
Aretha Franklin.
Oh.
Trending this week, and the timing of this is weird because I don't know when you're going to be hearing this and what's happening right now. We're pre-taping just a little bit, but Aretha, it's been announced by close people to her that she's very ill, kind of on death's door is what they're saying. And are you not aware of this?
No.
Oh,
yeah.
So
I was
it's
in China.
That's okay. Yeah, you are. It's I'm speaking obviously as a fan. I don't know Aretha Franklin, and prayers and blessings to her and her loved ones and her family. You know, it's just hit me hard this week because while Aretha is so. Is it unparalleled? Is that the word? That I love so many. I love Diana Ross. I love so many. I love Madonna. Aretha is truly in a class of her own.
And she has an iconicity that actually we normally only think of those who've passed on.
Yes.
Often. She's that level of star that...
Yeah, exactly. And the fact is, we don't always appreciate her because she's
Yeah.
so brilliant in
Yeah.
everything she does, and she's done so much that she's sort of bypassed.
Yes.
She's no longer a pop star.
Yes.
She's
like Mount Rushmore. She's something that's
Yeah.
always been, that will always be. And it's been an odd sort of melancholy few days for me because knowing it's not that she died, she's still with us. And so I've been exploring her catalog, just going online as we do. And obviously she's only had 2 number 1 songs her whole career, although she was the first woman to be inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But the first one was Respect.
Because some of them only went to like number 2 and number 3, like
she had-
that. Like Chain,
Tons of hits.
Yes, uh-huh.
But Respect is number 1. And the other number 1,
I Knew You Were Waiting.
Knew You Were Waiting for Me.
Yeah,
with George Michael.
with George Michael.
Now, do you know that song?
I knew you were waiting for me.
I do not
It was
know
a
that.
duet in the 80s.
It went to number 1 in the UK.
It went to
Number
number
1 in the
everywhere.
US.
And it's interesting because it's
was in China.
watch the video, listen to the song. I was listening to it yesterday in my car.
It's a good song.
And I was bawling. It connected with, this is like, forgive me, because this is going to be like me telling you a dream. You're going to be like, what are you talking about? But they say that when people are close to death, and I've been with 2 people in the room when they're close to death, they start to see people that are dead. Like you hear them talking to their fathers or people who have passed before them. And I have experienced that with people that I've been with. And so I put on Knew You Were Waiting for Me, which has always been an anthemic, beautiful song, but it never really made sense as a love song because it's George Michael and Aretha Franklin. But I started listening to it sort of in the ears of like paying tribute to Aretha and that George has passed and that he's waiting for Aretha. I know that's just my interpretation, but it's so, and it's sort of these, it becomes like this much like I used to be so morose as a youngster that I would like imagine the playlist for my funeral.
Oh, sure.
And
We've all done
I
that.
haven't done that in a while, but I'm starting again.
I still do it all the time. Every night I go
Knew
home.
You Were Waiting for Me, and we'll play it later. But like a warrior that fights and wins the battle, I know the taste of victory. Aretha. Though I went through some nights consumed by the shadows, I was crippled emotionally. We know with Aretha, she's infamous for having depression, for being dark, for having obsessions, all the kind of stuff, but never took away from her
for
genius.
some of her celebrity feuds
Yes.
with Beyonce.
Yes.
Remember when she came for Beyonce for saying that Tina Turner was the queen of soul, and she was furious.
She's
Yeah,
but doesn't
she
take away
fights
from her
with
genius.
She doesn't fight. She fights with Dionne Warwick. Remember, she's had some feuds.
Oh, Patti LaBelle.
Yeah.
Patti LaBelle. Yes.
Well, let me go back to my so, and then George comes in with the lyric, somehow I made it through the heartache. Yes, I did. I escaped. I found my way out of the darkness, kept my faith. When the river was deep, I didn't falter. When the mountain was high, I still believed. When the valley was low, it didn't stop me because I knew you were waiting for me. And there's just something about faith in that. And I don't know what I believe. I don't know if people, my mom and dad, are really in heaven or if I'm ever going to find them. But some part of me connects to that myth or that thought. And the idea that when we die, we escape. And I do feel that, like there's so much bad. I used to be such a cynical little kid when people would go to funerals and everybody would be like, oh, so-and-so's such a wonderful person. It's like, you didn't think that when you were with them. Or even though I lost my parents and we used to have conflict, but when they passed, all that conflict goes away and you just have sort of their spirit and their essence and their beauty. And I don't know. I have been bawling in my car listening to on the loop, Knew You Were Waiting for Me.
Well, I've told you that Knew You Were Waiting for Me has special meaning for me too, and I cry every time I hear it because I was at Ralph's one time and it was playing over the loudspeaker and Colton Haynes walked by me and looked at me and we had a moment and I realized that he has been waiting for me his whole life, and so I often think about that song and cry over Colton.
Though we were drawn together through destiny, I know this love was meant to be because I knew you were waiting for me.
But you got to think of sisters are doing it for themselves with Annie Lennox.
Oh,
you got it. One of the great moments of her career was at the Grammys when Placido Domingo was sick, and 2 hours beforehand he had to bow out, and she came on and sang that aria from like the Traviata or something like that with no preparation. She just got on stage and belted it out, and it was unbelievable. An opera fanatic said that it was as good as anything they've heard.
And she's a songwriter, and she's on so much.
Remember when she was on when she came out and just belted for Carole King at the
A Natural Woman at the Kennedy Center Honors.
I can't
even watch that yet. I have to wait.
It's so amazing. I saw it the other day.
And supposedly people are paying their last respects. Stevie Wonder was there in person. So by the time this airs, who knows where Aretha will be? I hope she's wherever she is. She's in
that
comfort.
Beyonce
and
dedicated her concert last night, and they played a bunch of songs, and she did it because she knew that she wanted forgiveness before she died. That's what it was, because Aretha hates her.
On that glorious note.
Yes, James St. James. I failed to introduce you at the top of the show.
I know,
do
it's me.
apologize, but there's no mistaking you, really, truly. What is the number 9 thing that made you go wow this week?
Number 9.
I started watching Sharp Objects on HBO. Do you guys know about this?
It's on my DVR. I meant to watch. I haven't yet.
It's so good. It's Amy Adams, okay, and it's based on a Gillian Flynn novel. It's
She wrote Gone Girl.
She wrote Gone Girl, yes. This stars Amy Adams. Patricia Clarkson is her mother, and this is Patricia's Emmy to lose. I'll tell you what. She is playing an elderly Southern belle in the Tennessee Williams tradition.
Yeah.
She's in nightgowns and high heels and just a bitch. She's Amy Adams is sort of a drunk, and she's used to be a cutter, and she's now a big town reporter, and they send her back to her hometown because there's been some little girls who have been murdered. So she goes back home, and she's staying with her mother, Patricia Clarkson, and Amy is a cutter, and Patricia has a habit of pulling out her eyelashes. That's like these women are all drunks, and they're all like self-mutilators and very crazy. There's Chris Messina is also in it, who was in the Mindy Project. Remember, he's the really handsome Chris. He's really handsome. It's sort of this weird small town. Small towns are almost always very strange, and everyone is sort of angry with her. And there's a lot of backstory. She had a sister who died. She has another, like everything about this town is just creepy and weird. There's a woman in white there's a local legend who comes and snatches children, and they think it might be the woman in white. Blah blah. It's very good, but I've been reading a lot of things about how amazing the editing is in this. The soundtrack is all old Led Zeppelin, and it's like really, really blues and everything like that. It's really fantastic. But the editing, they say it's the best edited series on TV right now. It's like a dream. Everything is like everything she does, like she'll blow out candles and it will remind her of another thing.
So she travels and has memories.
It's back and forth, and it's just really done well. And I guarantee that Patricia Clarkson is going to get an Emmy, and the editors are going to get Emmys.
How about Amy Adams?
Amy Adams will definitely be nominated.
Will they be in the same category, you think?
Oh no, I think Patricia will be
Supporting.
Patricia will be supporting.
Okay.
I
I worry about these things way ahead of time.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
is
a
it any
dreamy
voting
third
season,
person,
isn't it?
omniscient. There's a deja vu feeling of being punched into the past, even as your body continues to exist in the present.
How many have you seen?
I've seen 3. There's
Two more. There's 2 more episodes to go, right?
Yeah.
there's a lot of really great dialogue in it that's very Tennessee Williams. There's one where my demons are not tackled; they are just mildly concussed, sir. Like that sort of like
That's exactly how you speak.
it's true. It's
Mildly
true.
concussed.
It's but it's really fantastic, and I urge everybody to give it a shot because it's very dreamy and creepy. And Amy Adams is really outside of her comfort zone because she plays a very drab, very ordinary girl.
Amy Adams is kind of underrated. Like,
Yeah.
as
Oh,
everything she does, from comedy to musical to drama, she does impeccably.
Yeah.
That's there's 2 more episodes. You can check it out, right? Sharp
Yeah.
Objects on HBO Sundays at 9, or obviously via the HBO app.
Yes.
I can never figure out HBO Go, HBO Now.
HBO Ho.
They're very similar, right? Number 8.
Number 8.
I did the James St. James this week. I binged watched. Actually, it wasn't Netflix. It was on Amazon Prime. I have, you can add subscriptions. So I added the Showtime subscription. And I watched The Fourth Estate. Have you seen The Fourth Estate?
Is that a movie or a series?
It's
I don't know.
a documentary series about
the
the
media.
New York Times.
Yes. I've heard people talk about this, but I've not seen it.
You know what's really... You can't help but feeling the whole series was made to tackle these accusations. Yes, failing...
Stick it to the Trumpians.
Well, you're right. Failing New York Times, fake news. You feel that and you can't help but feeling watching this that the New York Times itself was behind this sort of move to be transparent, and that if only the cameras came in, they would see that New York Times journalists are just like us, just like ordinary people, just trying to do a job. I hate to say it, but I felt watching this that it actually... It left me thinking,
It is failing New York Times.
Fake news. Now look, let's be
Wait
completely...
a minute, because their subscriptions are up more than 100,000%.
That's because of the crossword puzzle.
Right. Well, here's the thing. It was called The Fourth Estate originally, but then it got changed to Reporting Trump's First Year - The Fourth Estate. And interestingly, by dint of covering Trump, you're like, why aren't they more aggressive? Why don't they stick knives in? And there's a very interesting story, which was that before the election, the New York Times reported there were no connections between Trump and Russia. This was before the election. And yet, they were also covering the Hillary email story a lot. And in fact, this resulted
Well, that's all Maggie Haberman,
This
isn't
resulted
it?
in the public editor of the New York Times scolding the New York Times for this misjudgment, which the executive editor, who's in this series a lot, let me get his name right, hang on, Dean Baquet, B-A-Q-E-T, he said that was a bad column and that was ridiculous, criticizing the public editor of the New York Times. Interestingly, this episode is not in this binge-watching series about New York Times transparency. And the other problem is...
Wait, the thing you just said about being critical of the criticism.
The public editor wrote...
That's not in the documentary?
No.
This is just something
How do you know?
know.
You know about it.
I know. I watched the whole documentary series,
And it was
I
missing.
knew about it separately.
Understood.
And it's not... Now, technically, it's not within his first year, right? Trump's first year. But and the other thing is, by Trump becoming the sort of the focus of the New York Times, it's extraordinary way giving Trump that kind of space. You just look. Here's the thing. Hear me out on this, because you are in this newsroom and basically you see them doing 3 things: watching CNN, talking on the phone, talking on their iPhones, or doing conference calls. It's extraordinarily, you could say, static,
Insular.
But yes, but you also sort of get the impression they don't seem to really be doing anything.
Go
Now,
out.
this is not their fault. Exactly. It never leaves the newsroom, really. So anytime there's a scoop, or in fact, this is a problem of the transparency thing, because they can't reveal their sources, right? So every time something really exciting is about to go down, the door shuts and we can't get it. We can't be there. So we're back to the office. I can't tell you how many times you see them typing. And that's the other interesting thing. They never seem to write anything on their own. They all seem to gather around the computer after watching CNN and then sort of throw out phrases. It was compelling, but it was also unsettling. And added to which is this sort of social network type soundtrack, very tense, very foreboding.
Right.
But when you set it to people on conference calls and people tapping away their
but
computers,
there is no other way to cover.
But I think inherently problematic, maybe?
It is inherently problematic.
So,
but also
by
it's inherently problematic is that we keep throwing another brick at we're taking out another brick at the wall.
I'm not throwing a brick. I'm just saying the object of this exercise, I suspect, was to do one thing, and just purely as a viewer, and God knows, don't support Trump. God knows I support the New York Times. I felt inadvertently, by default, how else could they have done it? I have no idea. And there's no question that the journalists are great people. The filmmakers are great people. So no one here is like, and it's interesting you picked on Maggie Haberman because she comes across badly.
Thank you. She's a horrible woman.
Well, I know, but it's like she's their star reporter.
But she's the one who has been pushing a lot of pro-Trump things and a lot of middling Trump things that are not actually anti-Trump, but it gives him enough air
that
neutralize
it.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a couple other people there that I wish they would just get rid of altogether.
Well,
yeah. And just go anti-Trump as opposed to trying to have this objectivity that CNN.
They're so concerned about being accurate that they just end up diluting the whole message. And in fact, they end up missing the biggest story of our entire lifetime in favor of a complete non-story. What I mean is, all the attention was on Hillary's emails. None of the attention was on Trump-Russia. There is no bigger story in our life.
But NPR just did the same thing last week when they interviewed the white supremacist leader who was organizing the Charlottesville thing. And they said they were doing it because, that's what they do. They interview people in the news, blah, blah, blah. But you're just giving, you don't, both sides.
100 people show up for that.
It supports false equivalency.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know we've got to wrap it up, but the height of the series for me is they start to investigate Trump's women, which is laudable, and then they get hit with their own Me Too scandal. Glenn Thrush, a White House reporter, turns out he was harassing women, and it's like, but the interesting thing is, from the moment you see Glenn Thrush on screen, I had no idea of this story.
You just
there's
immediately
a problem there.
Yeah.
And you're like, and Maggie Haberman's writing a piece with him, and he is so demeaning, so condescending, just a bundle of pent-up aggression. You're like, this is not right. And yet, none of them, these brilliant investigators, none of them seem to see what is right in front of them.
Well, you never know what's happening in your own house. I mean, that's just one of those great truths that, like.
Anyway, it sounds like I'm throwing brickbats at it, but I just thought it was really. It was unexpected and really interesting. I mean, I watched the whole thing. You should watch it.
I wish there was. I wish there was a hero in this story, a clear-cut hero in this.
I'll tell you who it is. It's Steve Avenatti. Avenatti?
Michael Avenatti.
Thank you.
Who is
the lawyer.
But,
the lawyer.
Because now he wants to run for president. And
why not?
Because he has no political experience. And we've learned that people without political experience should not be running for president. Isn't that what when we heard that Kris Jenner today was planning on running for president, didn't you just say, girl, go become a congrorswoman first. Go become a senator.
Dog catcher.
Yes, anything. Michael Avenatti, who all he's done is just hang out with Stormy Daniels, and
please don't be all porn star phobic. He made a fantastic speech, and his whole thing is.
So a fantastic speech does not mean you can make.
He's a good voice in the mix.
I like him. I think he's doing great work, and I think he's fantastic.
Capable of making a speech. We can't. The current one in the White House can't even make a speech.
That's fine. Be involved in the mix. Go get into politics and make a voice, make a change. But you don't have to start off by running for president.
Start at the top, James.
No, you're part of the problem.
Okay, I'm part of the problem. Watch it for the state on Showtime anytime.
Did I just get a little shrill again?
No,
I sometimes do too.
Okay, so but speaking of watching something anytime, Wow presents Plus. We have a new show. Iconic with Brad Goreski, Stardust of the Stars.
Yeah. Everyone says that it's really fun too. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
Look at these boys.
My goodness.
Brad sits down.
For those of you listening, we're at a window facing tourists without shirts walking by, and James is a little distracted.
You know, I think we should go back to the basement with the green screen where we just project the window.
It was better lighting.
So, yes, back to Wow Presents Plus. Iconic Brad Goreski. He sits down with one of our favorite queens to discuss their most iconic looks. Right?
Yeah,
That's pretty good. Subscribe.
I think the first one is Violet. I'm not sure. I know that we have some really fun queens.
Well, it's coming up. So,
Yeah.
Okay, we've got to take a quick break. Here's a question I do not know the answer to. What is so special about this week in particular? We're talking about the week of August 10th to 19th, just as clarification. What is so special about that? And I think that's quite difficult. Aretha Franklin and Diana Ross, you'll know this one, guys, both grew up down the street from what other Motown superstar? We'll be right back with the answers after the break. You're listening to the Wow Report on Radio Andy, SiriusXM.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report.
Welcome back. Listen to the Wow Report. I'm here. I'm Fenner Bailey. I'm here with James St. James, Tom Campbell.
Hello, hello.
And Blake Jacobs.
Hi.
So before the break, we asked two questions. Blake came up with this question. This week, August 10th to 19th, is significant. Why?
Woodstock.
Oh.
Woodstock anniversary, 49th.
I was gonna say Manson murders.
You don't know.
I have no idea.
Blake?
It's Palindrome Week.
What is that?
Oh, yes.
But wait.
It's 8-10-0-18.
1-8.
And then if you do it the other way, it's 8-1-0-18.
18 all week.
All week long.
Wait, say that one more time because I'm
So
really...
the date is the same forwards as it is backwards all week long.
08
1-0.
10
18.
18.
And then if you take that and go, it's
1.
8-1, which is 5-0, 8-1-0-1.
And then 8, 11, 18.
This is
Yep, it works all week.
Great radio.
What does that mean anyway? So what?
Palindrome. It's just interesting.
it's
If you're into
just-
numbers,
yeah.
people are into
A
numerology.
man, a plan,
people are into...
a man, a plan, a canal, Panama.
And then the second question,
That's a palindrome.
Yes, the second
Wow,
question
is a palindrome.
yes.
A man.
W. That's so clever.
Able was I ere I saw Elba, is what Napoleon said.
I hear he's up to play James Bond in the new James Bond movie. Oh, that's Idris Elba. Sorry.
And the other one was
Aretha Franklin, Diana Ross grew up down the street from what other Motown superstar?
First of all, Aretha was not a Motown star, just to be clear. Diana Ross was. And I think Smokey Robinson's the answer.
I was going to say
Michael Jackson.
I was going to say Michael or Dion, but
No and no.
It's Smokey.
it's Smokey. Okay.
I'm a Motown.
Okay, let's get back to our countdown of things that made us go, wow. Tom, number 7.
Number 7.
I say it every week, exceptionally because it's summer. I'm looking for escapism because of the political landscape. I want escapism. And Turner Classic Movies did not let me down.
yeah.
It's every 24 hours this month of August, they feature a different star, 24 hours of movies. And this past Sunday was Doris Day Sunday.
Nothing like a Doris Day marathon to lift your spirits.
And I think some people... Doris Day, I love her.
people are turned off by the idea of Doris
Yes.
Day. They don't give her a chance.
Or it's like fingernails against a chalkboard. And listen, her reputation
as a goody-goody.
As a goody-goody.
As a saccharine sweet. Mew, 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 mew.
in some of the movies that weren't as good. And the thing is, she worked and worked and worked. She was like famous at 18 or something. Here's the story. I'm gonna tell you the Doris Day story because she was from like Cincinnati, Doris Koppelhoff. And she, at like 12 or 13, had won a dance contest with little Johnny so-and-so. And the night before, they were supposed to go to Hollywood for the prize. Car hit by a train. Both legs broken.
Hers?
Oh. Doris Koppelhoff's Hollywood dreams thrashed. So she couldn't dance. So for the year that she was in recovery, she took voice lessons. And she would had voice lessons, and her teacher was on like the second story. So she would crawl up those stairs with her arms. Maybe I'm making that part up, but I like the idea of her just doing whatever she can. This little Doris Koppelhoff. She was singing on the local radio station at night. Some band guy was going through, heard her, and hired her. And she became Les Brown and the Band of Renowns, was big in World War II. And he wrote a song for her called Sentimental Journey. Gonna take. Now, if that was her career, if that was her highest point, wow. But then she was at a party in Hollywood, and I forget the names of the singers. They're very famous. And she goes, I was at a Hollywood party. She didn't know anything about it. She had just gone out to like follow, I think, a husband who beat her. And everyone at the Hollywood party performed. So she got up and she sang. And it was Sammy Kahn and his partner, and they hired her because they're looking for an ingenue to play the lead in Romance on the High Seas, which was like a romantic comedy set on a thing and a cruise ship. And she sang in that movie.
I know that one.
You sigh, the song begins, you speak, and I hear violins. It's magic. Oh, I'm getting the 1 minute
You
thing.
have such a beautiful.
Thank you.
You can really
So,
sing.
but anyway,
So she just, and then she worked for 20 years. 20 years, nonstop, #1 box office in the country. She went from Warner Brothers, like ditzy musicals, to her Pillow Talk. What was at the time, Pillow Talk was like Sex in the City. It was like
Rock
very
Hudson, and she did.
And she also did along
That
the way.
Touch of Mink with Cary Grant.
But she also, you have to watch The Man Who Knew Too Much with
with James
Alfred
yeah,
Hitchcock with James Stewart, and she plays amazing in that. And then I was blown away by Midnight Lace.
Oh, I love Midnight Lace with Rex Harrison and Myrna Lloyd.
That's really all I wanted to talk
That's the scary
about.
one because she's in London and there's a fog and there's someone in the fog who reaches out and says,
Mrs. Preston,
I'm
going to kill you, Mrs. Preston.
Yes. And then nobody believes her, and she goes to the police, and they don't believe her, and her husband thinks that and it turns out the husband is trying to. But Myrna Lloyd comes out of retirement to play this.
She's Aunt B.
her elderly aunt,
Yes.
but it's all in the fog. It's so good.
Yes.
It's so good. My favorite.
What is that movie? What is that movie?
It's called Midnight Lace.
It's
against type. She plays like the abused wife of like, and she cries the entire movie.
Because the problem with her is no, and I will say this because, like I said, people do. She's very saccharine sweet, and you love her. You grow to love her in all these movies and everything.
She's so
like that.
talented.
But she near the end, she's playing like 50. She's 50 years old, and she's playing the perpetual virgin in every single movie. Who is clutching onto her virginity, and these mashers are trying to get in, trying to seduce her, and she's like this old woman at this point, and it's just tragic. It's very sad.
I don't know if you can relate, but sometimes you get a certain public image, James, and you cling on to it as long as you can.
But I will have to say that my favorite is The Thrill of It All
Just
with
as long
James
as we get
Garner.
it.
that was the other one I was talking about.
I love Thrill of It All. That's where she just inadvertently becomes a commercial. She does like
She's a doctor. She's a doctor's wife, and somehow she starts sponsoring a soap, and she becomes hugely popular.
She's a huge star, and it's very much like it has a lot to say about fame and everything,
Yes.
and it's still very, very pertinent.
And it's written by Larry Gelbart and Carl Reiner. It's like a sophisticated, well-written.
It's
it
a
holds
big-
up.
yeah.
James Garner is gorgeous. Her clothes and her body, she had not turned yet. She was still gorgeous.
She's famous mostly for the Rock Hudson. I mean, for the is it the Rock Hudson?
Yeah.
For her Rock Hudson movies.
Pillow Talk.
Yeah, but my favorites are the
Talk.
ones with James Garner,
Yes.
who the Lover Come Back to Me, which is where she took over Marilyn Monroe's role after Marilyn died.
And the last thing I know we're over, but is that Doris Day, when her husband Marty Melcher, her third husband, who was her manager, died in 1968, and she had been #1 box office for 20 years and worked every day of her life, found out that she was $20 million in debt.
So that's how. That's
And
why
he had signed her to a CBS contract, and for the next 5, 6, 7 years, she did the Doris Day Show to pay her legal bills to get the money back. And once she got that money back, she retired, and she lives today in Carmel.
She's
Well,
98 years old.
She's 96 years old and still cooking. Hooray for Doris Day!
But when she was done with Hollywood, once she paid that off, she was like, I never again.
Not a narcissist, she.
No, she would. Every once in a while, she'll toddle out and do something with Betty White for some sort of dogs or something like that. What? God, okay. Jesus.
I love that each segment, as long as we get a rise out of James. But James, it's your turn. It's your turn
To continue talking about Doris Day now.
Let's on the show. Update. Number 6.
No, that's not
Number
it at
6.
all. Not it at all.
No,
No,
really?
no.
I wanted to know.
Well, we will. We'll get to it.
All right. James.
Am I getting the wrap it up already? 20 seconds in? How dare you?
Well, you spent all the time talking on Tom's.
How dare you?
Okay, number 6.
Number 6.
completely different route right now because we went from ha ha ha, funny, nostalgia, sweetly tinged, wonderful lover to something called The Sinner on USA. Do you guys know about this?
You talked about this early on.
Last year, it's a series.
No, it's good.
No. Last year, last year it was starring
Jessica Biel.
Jessica Biel, exactly. And she was on Bored Housewife, and one day she's a mother, and she goes to the beach, and out of the blue, she just stabs someone next to her 40 times, and like just violent. She just goes berserk.
There must be a reason.
Well, the rest of the series is trying to figure out what the reason was. Now, this season, it's a whole new story, whole new cast.
Stab someone else?
Well, it starts off with this family, and they're driving to Niagara Falls, and it's the middle of the night, and the car breaks down, and they push the car.
I can't watch this.
Oh, it's very. They push the car to a spooky hotel in the middle of nowhere, and they get a room for the night, and then the next morning, there's all sorts of weird tension, and you can't figure out like, did they beat the kid? What is it? What's going on? Is the father abusive? I don't know. It's very strange. We haven't really figured that out yet. Well, the next morning they wake up and the kid is gone, and
I hate.
Yeah.
Why is it that all these binge things are about missing, abducted, murdered children?
No.
I cannot.
But here's the switch. Here's what goes. So all of a sudden he opens up the door, and the kid. They said, "Where have you been?" And he said, "Well, I was at the breakfast buffet, and Mommy and Daddy, I brought you some tea." And so they, "Oh, thank you, darling." And they take the tea, and all of a sudden they, and their eyes are bugging out, and they're twitching, and they're falling on the ground and flopping around like fish on the, it's terrifying. I have never seen a death scene played out like this on TV. And they're like blood is coming out of their ears, and they're puking up, and the
What's
parents.
the little kid doing?
The kid is just standing there watching, and then later the police come, and the kid is sort of rocking back and forth, and his name is I don't remember.
Jessica Biel. Acting tour de force.
Let's just say his name is Joe. Oh, it's Julian. His name is Julian. And they say, Julian, what happened? And he's like, Shadow Julian came.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
So he's sort of a split personality.
Well,
so what's the story engine moving forward?
Well,
if I may be so bold to move you along.
The police are going through everything. The police are going through all the suitcases, and they're like, here's a pair of women's underwear, and here's a pair, a father's T-shirt, and here's the blouse, and they're like, but there's no children's clothes in here. Why would you go on a trip to Niagara Falls and not pack anything for the children, for the son? And then they're like, but wait a minute, if the trajectory of the car, they weren't going towards Niagara Falls at all. They're going the opposite direction. So then all of a sudden, this woman comes for the end of the first episode, and they say, she says, I need to talk to you about my son, Julian, or something like that. And they said, oh, and like they're realizing that they might have kidnapped Julian. I don't know. I'm only on the first episode. But
You're in.
I'm in. And it is.
Jessica Biel is not in this one?
No. Bill Pullman is
executive produces.
It's a lot of people for me to remember.
No. Bill Pullman is the only.
Jessica to come back.
Yeah, Bill is the only one that you need to know.
Could she make a cameo, Jessica Biel?
No, she's dead. She's in prison.
She's the executive producer. Yeah. Okay. So The Sinner is on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. on USA. And
here's the thing about that, because people... you have a tendency to forget that USA exists, okay? God bless them. They do a lot of good programming. They actually do. But it's not something that is always... I'm not always scrolling past it and looking at. So just remember, USA has some really good things, and just go there and just check it out. The Sinner, absolutely fantastic. And like I said, one of the best scenes I've ever seen on television. Terrifying.
Okay, thank you, James. Number 5.
Number 5.
James, do you remember, or did you ever meet David Wojnarowicz?
No, I never did. He's somebody who intimidated the crap out of me.
But was he ever, you saw him across a room?
I did. I was in many parties with him, and I remember he wrote for the East Village Eye. Was something.
Who is he?
Oh, okay. I thought you would never ask. Yeah. David Wojnarowicz.
First of all, how do you pronounce that name? I never knew until you pronounced it the other day.
It is spelled Wojnarowicz. So I've been saying Wojnarowicz.
Yeah,
but it's Wojnarowicz, I learned.
Wojnarowicz.
And I was talking to some curator, and I was like, Wojnarowicz, and they just said, yes, Wojnarowicz. So having been put in my place, he was a East Village artist in the 80s. He died in 92, tragically of AIDS, just aged, I think, let me see. He was really.
But to say he was a writer sort of does him a disservice because.
Oh no, I didn't say he was a writer. I said he's an artist,
well,
a
he's
multimedia artist.
But he's a writer. He's a playwright. He's a movie maker. He was an AIDS activist, a huge AIDS activist.
I'll tell you what you might know. There's a very famous self-portrait he took of his face with his lips sewn together.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But okay, and to give you another clue, pointer. The U2 have a single one. We'll play that. The cover is buffalo, or is it bison, falling off a cliff. And that's a David Wojnarowicz image. There's also a very famous sort of burning house stencil that he would graffiti. I mean, the thing about him is that he was a very underground artist in the US. The New York Times said his work was anti-academic because he made videos and he wrote sort of diaries and he did stencils and graffiti.
Ahead of his time.
Exactly. Especially, this was a time when, I mean, I still think to this day, artists are expected to stay in a certain lane, right? So if you do everything that is to your disadvantage and you're perceived as you don't know who you are or what your brand is. You know, Keith Haring, he did the same, I mean, genius, but he did the same thing. Or Basquiat, they had a recognizable house style, whereas Wojnarowicz was just far more multidisciplinary, right?
He also was somebody who was very early on very loud and outspoken and angry about his AIDS diagnosis.
Well, and there's a reason for yes.
Yes, and he was one of the people who he was the first one to write "When I Die, just throw my body on the steps of the
FDA.
FDA, yeah. Remember
that
it's a famous leather jacket that says that.
He's like, let's see, if I die of AIDS, forget burial, just drop my body on the steps of the FDA. But here's the thing. So there's a long story short, there's a big retrospective right now at the Whitney. And there's actually another exhibition at the gallery that showed him while he was alive, PPOW, which was an East Village Art Gallery. And it's amazing to see all this work together in one place. And the reason, well, not the reason, but what you realize is he was briefly lovers with Peter Hujar. Peter Hujar was a photographer, kind of a rival to Mapplethorpe. But whereas Mapplethorpe was so brilliant at playing the system, and whereas Mapplethorpe's imagery was always very symmetrical and very flat and sort of perfectionist, Hujar's imagery, no less gay, no less explicit, was very scrappy or very sort of real.
But Hujar also was a bit more queer-centric in that, you know, Mapplethorpe tackled sex and Hujar did more of like the more camp things. Am I right?
It was camp, I think, was more explicit, whereas Mapplethorpe sort of sublimated sex into this sort of beautiful geometry. And Peter Hujar's just great big erect cocks, you know.
But I see he did a lot of Jackie Curtis and a lot of the Queens and everything like that. Anyway.
But anyway, I was just going to tell you the story very quickly, which was that he was lovers with Peter Hujar, and it was Peter Hujar who inspired him and was like a mentor and made David Wojnarowicz consider himself as an artist. And when Peter Hujar himself died of AIDS, I think in 87, that's right, 87, Wojnarowicz was with him on his deathbed, as were other people. And once he died, he threw everybody out of the room and photographed Peter Hujar's dead body. And very powerful images. And it sort of almost galvanized his rage at the way no one was doing anything about AIDS in the establishment. And that, you know, even at the time, he was almost seen as too angry, but he was, without question, a pioneer. He was scary, of actor. But yes, he was.
Yeah, yes. And he was a towering intellectual and very, like I said, intimidating. And his writing was very dense and angry.
Yes.
I remember he
did stream of consciousness, rage-filled. But here's the thing.
He did do the Wojnarowicz diaries. I don't know if you've read it. And it's like they're 3,000 pages and they're very dense, but it's fantastic reading if you were a diary person.
If you're a diarist.
Yeah.
He created, but the other thing though is definitely, I feel the Whitney, you know, the irony is he started out doing work at the piers where everybody went for sex, like Pier 34. And I guess that's where the Whitney basically
don't
is.
act like you don't know about the piers.
Before my time.
It's basically where the Whitney is. So it's a sort of irony to go from the abandoned piers where he was doing graffiti type stuff to this sort of reverential retrospective, but it's high time.
It's
and
an
also,
interesting.
You really got to go see the PPOW installations. If I draw a breath, James will interrupt me, so I'm just going to keep speaking in one long run on. So There is this amazing installation, and I'll just give you one thing. You go down this tunnel of black plastic trash bags, and he's written sort of AIDS statistics and things. And one of the things is this. I just heard the Statue of Liberty has AIDS, but she doesn't know if she got it from the Hudson River or the Staten Island Ferry. Do you remember that? You know who told that joke?
Who?
Bob Hope. And it makes you realize...
Oh my God, I shouldn't have laughed. That was terrible. Cut that out.
I'm not going to cut it out because, that's the shocking...
But if he had said it, that would be funny. But if Bob Hope says it, then it's disgusting.
Well, it's disgusting, but that's why he repeats it in graffiti in this installation. I think it's very powerful.
But I do want to say, though, that it's been a long time coming, this retrospect, the fact that because he went, after he died in, 92, 91?
92.
92.
Yeah.
It's been...
Age 37, yeah.
It's been 25 years that he sort of languished in obscurity
before.
before.
Why? I think it was because he had an unpronounceable name. I think that had a lot to do with it.
It's not sticky. It's not...
Maplethorpe.
Uh-huh.
Ta-da! Herring, Basquiat, Brand. Wojnarowicz. Everyone's like, how do you say his name? How do you spell it? What is his name?
So he probably should have changed his name, and he would have more of a legacy.
But is it artists' obligation to be self-commodifying?
Yes. Don't you think that's their biggest obligation?
Well, you could argue that that's why artists today just have one shtick that they just endlessly repeat and churn out. Is that
Madonna? No, I'm kidding. Oh my God, I just wanted to get a rise out of it.
By the way, happy birthday, Madonna. This week, I thought that's what was significant about this week. It was her 60th birthday this week.
We celebrated last week as well.
I thought you were saying happy birthday.
The whole month.
Every day.
The whole month
is a celebration.
Yeah, I thought you were wishing me a happy birthday.
No, but I suppose since you bring it up, happy belated birthday. Okay, we got to take a quick break. But actually, here's the question, you guys. Yeah. Yes, Wojnarowicz said, if I die of AIDS, forget burial, just drop my body on the steps of the FDA. But where is he buried? You'll be surprised, I think. You're listening to The Wow Report on Radio Andy, SiriusXM.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report.
Hey, welcome back. You're listening to Wow Report on Radio Andy, SiriusXM. We're counting down the top 10 things that made us go, wow. I'm Fenton. I'm here with Tom and James and Blake. And we're talking about Wojnarowicz for the break. And the question was, Wojnarowicz famously said, if I die of AIDS or don't bother burying me, just dump my body on the steps of the FDA. So my question is, where is he buried?
Arlington Cemetery.
Hollywood forever. Your backyard.
He is buried on the front lawn of the White House.
What?
Yes.
They spread his ashes.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, he was cremated, and then they took the ashes down to Washington.
Yeah, that's
and
not quite being buried, is it?
It's a nice. It was a nice tease. I won by being the closest.
Yes, that's true. Okay. Number 4.
Number 4.
I needed. This is just a quick update. You guys can take time with your segments. We talked about Insatiable, the new Netflix series about the overweight girl who loses the weight, and there was this whole like boycott it, don't watch it. It's
homophobic. It's it's fat shaming.
Well, it's out now, and I sort of defended it. I said, let it be on, and I still defend that it should be on. But I got to tell you, I watched one episode. It's awful.
It's like the remake of Heathers.
Heathers. It's a weird thing, and maybe people are right. Maybe because we're so politically correct, but I don't mind things that are politically incorrect and that sting and that cross the line. But this does everything. There's, in humor, one of the guys is a straight dad who really seems kind of gay, and he's a lawyer and has pageants, but he also has been accused of being a pedophile. And Alyssa Milano plays like a sullen woman, which she should never do. And I like Alyssa Milano. She's beautiful, but it's just layer upon layer of taboo breaking subject, and it would be great if it had a point of view and it were funny, but it's kind of just like the life has been. It's like when you can compress your clothes with like getting your vacuum to suck out all the air. It's like they took a bright colored, not very well directed.
But the
thing,
girl,
and
what's her name? The star. She's sort of a
all
cutesy
right.
patootsy.
She's not a comedic genius, and she's not amazing at delivering sarcasm in her lines. Like she should be in a WB series, but like Riverdale is like Shakespeare compared to this.
And you haven't watched it, James?
No.
So I'm just saying I defend their right to make this crap, but I just didn't want anyone who had listened to us before, who's influenced by anything I say, don't bother watching it. For yourself, for your time, watch Doris Day, The Thrill of It All, or is Doris Day Midnight Lace?
The next week there is 24 hours of Miriam Hopkins movies, which that's me. That's me right there.
Anyway,
so
Insatiable, spit it out.
Streaming on Netflix.
Spit it out. Don't swallow.
James, what have you got at number 3?
Number 3.
Well, I have an update too from a story that we first started following back in 2016.
Was it that year?
Yes, it has been 2.5 years of following this story of the cannibal frat boy from Florida.
Face eater.
The face eater, yes. If you recall, he was having lunch with his father, and out of the blue, he got up and stomped out of the restaurant, furious. And the next time anyone saw him, he was 5 blocks away. He was in his underwear. He had attacked a couple in their garage. He had killed them both with some blunt objects that he found in the garage, and then he was eating the father's face. And when the police came, he said, "Help me!" He was making animal noises, and he said, "I've eaten something strange." And of course, it was a face. And they thought maybe it was flakka. Which is a drug in Florida.
Sure.
They thought maybe
is that
it was
bath salts?
They thought it was bath salts. They thought it was spice. There's all sorts of things that have been making people go loony and crazy.
Yeah.
I thought there was the beginning of a zombie outbreak. It sort of seemed like a little bit like
or
that.
What about MK mind control type?
That's another possibility,
Yeah.
sure. But apparently, all this time, they didn't find any traces of drugs in his system.
No, nothing.
And he had tried drinking some weed killer or something like that, and his esophagus had been burned, so he couldn't speak for months and months and months while it was healing, and something was wrong. I don't know, for some reason
He had drunk weed killer?
Yeah. That was sort of an odd thing too, but all this time there hasn't been a criminal trial yet. All this time there hasn't been a criminal trial yet. So the sister of the wife is now bringing
Civil suit?
a civil suit trying to extract some information.
And what do you have for us?
talk yet?
No. Well, no, he can talk yet, but like I said, he's just been languishing in jail right now, and so
What's the update then?
This feels like a slightly unsatisfying update.
No.
Leaves me a little peckish.
Oh, no. I have something.
Just make something
Now it's
up.
2.5 years later, and they still hasn't gone to trial. This
Well,
is
that's 2.5 years later. We don't know any more than we did.
She's filing a wrongful death civil suit.
That's
and
news.
She's,
That's news.
Yeah,
Statement of the
she's
obvious. Why wouldn't you? Someone eats your face off.
Trying to bypass the fact that there's been no criminal trial to
I
sort
see.
of bring some justice about.
Why wouldn't they bring criminal charges?
Because you know how it just takes 10 years for the Lady Liberty to extract her vengeance.
Well, so stay tuned because we'll have more updates.
Yes.
Okay, lovely. Number 2, I read a...
I just wanted to say that the reason why I brought it up,
I love the story, by the way.
thank you, was because that we've had a lot of cannibal stories on the show, and we get a lot of flack for it.
When Tom was out, T.S. Madison was here.
Yes, and we
began.
terrified her.
That was awful. I feel like just blush with
people
shame.
attacked us over
Yes.
it, and people have said that all we do is talk about cannibalism. I went into your office the other day, and there was a huge book on cannibalism right in
Stop.
your front desk.
Edit.
Okay, number 2.
Number 2.
In the Garden of Beasts by Eric Larson. I read this book. The book was actually published 7 years ago. And New York Times said there are hindsight-laden books that see the rise of Hitler as a parade of telltale signs. And I agree. I think we all agree that is the historical way of looking back at it. It's like, there was this sign, there was this sign, there was this sign, and he rose to power, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
This book is really different. And Eric Larson, by the way, is the guy who wrote one of the biggest bestsellers, The Devil in the White City.
Oh, sure.
About the mass murderer during the World Trade Fair in Chicago.
Yeah.
It's a great. It's a great book.
They've been
And
trying to make it into a
weirdly,
movie forever and
I
ever
know,
and ever.
hasn't
Yeah,
been made into a movie.
It seems like a perfect,
He was a
vehicle.
fabulous no serial killer. It's fabulous, but he opened a fake hotel. People would stay there, and then he had secret passages, and he would dispose.
Oh, that
of
was
them.
American Horror Story Hotel was loosely based on that, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Anywho, the thing that's different about this book is it basically covers, I suppose, whereas Fourth Estate covers the first year of Trump, this book covers the first year of Hitler being in office or in power in 1933. And it's based on the American ambassador to Germany, who was not Ken Dodd. That was a British comic. What was his name? Something Dodd. Can't remember. But he was a sort of professor who got appointed. No one wanted the job to be the ambassador at this time, but this professorial guy who came from outside the Foreign Office took the job. And him and his wife and his daughter and his son, they all moved to nascent, that's what I should say, nascent Nazi Germany. And what's fantastic about it is it's sort of like, on the one hand, you've got all these sort of milestones, the Night of the Long Knives, and yet on the other hand, you've got this ambassador sitting in this building trying to go about life normally. And in fact, before he went to America, they said, just do what Hitler wants. That was his sort of mission. In fact, the Americans were more focused on getting their reparations than anything to do with stopping Hitler. And even Dodd himself, when he met with Hitler, he says, yes, we have a Jewish problem in the States too. And he wouldn't, there was a quota for German Jews to, I think, 26,000 a year to get out. But he would never approve anybody's visas, saying, we're at full quota. And because everyone knew it was so hard and we kept on telling there's no room, no one applied. And then they said, well, we obviously don't need a quota program because no one's applying for it. So there's no problem. So it's this extraordinary sort of self-fulfilling, sort of enabling thing, which when you add to the sort of fundamental anti-Semitism at the time, that wasn't just in Germany and wasn't, I guess, just in America, but was a sort of generalized feeling, it's really quite shocking. It's very shocking. In fact, after the Night of the Long Knives, they have July, that was in end of June, early July, they have a garden party on July 4th. And Ernst Röhm, who was assassinated, and he was the leader of the Brown Shirts, and he was assassinated in the Night of the Long Knives, had previously replied before he was assassinated, saying he was sorry, but he would not be able to attend. I know it's not funny, but it's shocking how it's almost like, that thing about where they talk about you put an egg in, you boil an egg and you put it in the water, and you just don't know that the water's getting hotter and hotter.
Right.
I like the frog in the soup.
It.
Yes,
The frog.
And you know what's also fascinating is that a lot of the reviews say, well, it's an instrumental, it's a good illustrative book about where we are today, but make no mistake, Hitler was not Trump, Trump is no Hitler. And yet, what's weird is you read this book and
Hitler wasn't Hitler in the 1920s when he was an artist. So
exactly,
zombie face eater isn't zombie face eater until he eats a face.
he was a nice guy just 5 hours earlier.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
and it's a road that you travel down, and things get scarier and scarier and darker and darker.
Yes, I mean, this guy Dodd says that he said, the thing about people around Hitler is that the whole gang is nothing but a horde of criminals and cowards. Sounds like the people around Trump.
Hitler,
right?
Hitler was a joke in the beginning as well, if you recall. I mean, nobody ever thought that he would, the more you get away with, the more you want to get away with things.
Exactly.
And that's what happens with Trump. And that's why it's a slippery slope.
Exactly. It's a pretty good book. I really recommend it because it is so different. And, Larson says, it's the accumulation of these little bits and pieces of horror. Why didn't anybody do anything?
Yeah.
Because you know what? Nobody did anything.
And nobody is doing anything now.
Exactly.
The Republicans are not doing a damn thing now.
They're not.
No.
So, all right.
This is why I watch Doris Day movies.
Right.
And that
In the
book's
Garden of
available.
Beasts,
Yeah.
Love, Terror, and an American Family in Hitler's Berlin by Eric Larson is on Amazon. Okay, guys. $1 Million Listing New York. It's in full swing.
On Bravo.
Yep.
Every Tuesday.
Ryan, Frederick, Steve Gold. Every Tuesdays. Yeah, 10 p.m.
Freak Show on Hulu. It is?
Yes. Oh my God.
That's James Tourette's
Sorry,
promo moment.
I
Here's
want
what's
to make some
coming.
money. Let me make some damn money once in a while.
Because you're being
For once in my life.
are being paid so much to do this show. Okay, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, Resistor of the Week. And the number one thing this week that made us go, wow.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hey, welcome back to the Wow Report. We're at that amazing point where we reveal the number one thing that made us go, wow. This week. James, what is it?
Number 1.
Ow, it's very exciting. Sacha Baron Cohen's What is America?
You know what? We've talked about it before, but this is an amazing, amazing series.
What is America or who's America?
Oh.
It's Who is America?
Who is America?
Okay.
Okay.
Who is America? What is America? Why is America?
I watched the first episode and I have them all DVR'd and I watched last week. It is, here's my mixed feeling about it. I think it's amazing, but it's
Low-hanging fruit?
well, I hate seeing people get humiliated. I don't even like to watch.
seeing Republicans get humiliated?
I don't
You
even
hate
like
seeing Joe Arpaio?
I don't even like to see YouTube, like YouTube clips on Facebook where people fall off the back of boats and stuff. That being said, these are all idiot people.
Nobody likes to see that.
Well, this is like the guy who had to bite on the dildo.
But the Sheriff Joe Arpaio saying that he would suck off Donald Trump.
That was good.
Okay,
Come
he
on.
just really.
And this is someone who has humiliated and hurt so
Absolutely.
many people.
Exactly.
It's less those people. It's like it's the lesser people who aren't as public.
But
I think
are no
about their
less
lives.
vile and no less hateful and no less.
You mean like the woman that in the OC that had like the
art museum. She
yeah.
was kind of more playful. But the guy, who was the guy that bit onto the dildo out
He
of
was
self-defense?
a hate monger. He was a horror show.
Is that his
Yeah.
background?
Terrible man.
I just feel, I guess.
Who was the guy who he persuaded to pull down his pants and reverse onto Sacha Baron
Well, he was-
Cohen?
he-
dumb
He was a
con-
Nazi.
He was like
a representative.
A rep, yeah, a state rep.
But he was
They're bad people. I just worry about destroying their lives and
But
humiliating
I'm not worried
them.
about destroying
They've
people's
destroyed
lives.
other
Whose sole
people's.
purpose is to make life as hard for everybody else. These are anti-LGBT people. These are anti.
We're on the same side. I don't mean to argue with you. I just there's something about humiliating people that
You're saying two wrongs don't make a right, kind of.
a little bit, and it just feels like suddenly having your life turned upside down because you've been captured doing something.
But I'll tell you something.
Humiliating on television, being tricked into it, doesn't make me feel. I still watch. I'm still DVRing.
Okay.
But I have mixed feelings about
But
it.
here-
Because I do feel they deserve what's coming to them, and it's interesting because he does go after liberals as well as conservatives.
Yep.
And maybe it's my own bias, but I always feel the liberals deal with it so elegantly. They make pratfalls, but they don't pull down their pants and ram up against Sacha Baron. It's like,
But here's the thing too: is that the idea of when they go low, we go high has been proven that it doesn't work with this crowd. When they go low, we've got to go low too, and we've got to be just as nasty and as mean and as spiteful to get rid of them as they are being with us. So I don't see any reason. I don't see anything wrong with treating these people.
I'm not even saying
like-
it's wrong. I'm just saying it gives me a queasy feeling, and it may be the way I was raised. It may be the fact that I inhale too much cat fur at home. There's a lot of things that could contribute to this wheezy, queasy feeling.
We get it. You're a saint. The rest of us are all
Not at all. I'm watching. I'm just letting you know. I can get behind it. We can all praise it, and I get it. But there's something about that.
well, I have to say,
It's a little nervous-making.
I totally understand your feeling, but although I have to admit I don't really share it because I'm
fine.
a vengeful bitch. But I think that it is amazing to me how he persuades
he
these
does. He
people
hypnotizes.
to
He's
do
got a
this
hypnotic
stuff.
power.
Hey, well, maybe, but to me, watching the show is these characters are so obviously creations. It's sort of at first I sort of pity the ignorance of the people who even think that that's a real person,
Right.
like with the eyebrows and the.
I didn't like the Ali G show. Was that the one?
Yeah.
To me, I understood because to me that seemed like it was needlessly picking on innocent people, that just sort of making fun of people's ignorance and
But
everything.
here,
like
you think the victims are deserving.
I do.
Okay.
Oh, I do think he, by and large, picks on some of the most unforgivable motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I'm just worried that I'm going to be called for interview soon, and I won't know what's going on. Next thing you know, I'm biting a dildo.
I can't wait. That'll be so exciting for all of us.
But there's but it's also sort of implying that there's something wrong with biting dildos. You know, I mean, there isn't.
No, you're right.
But it only is not for you. For you could bite as many dildos as you want.
Okay, let me ask you this. In terms of our resistor of the week, how do you feel about it being Omarosa? Because a lot of
I'm mixed about Omarosa. I think I blame Trump for Omarosa.
Yes.
And the fact that he's getting a dose of energy, I think everything. I think every little thing helps take him down.
But I don't think that having him say the N-word is going to make one bit of difference. I think he's going to be celebrated by. I think it's going to be.
Plus, it seems that those tapes have been erased and are unlikely ever to see the light of day. Because the latest thing is there was a $26 million payout to someone.
The
Mark Burnett.
Mark Burnett.
Yeah.
Mr. Roma Downey.
Look, here's the thing. I mean, I've been reading a lot about the Omarosa thing, and people are saying, a lot of people on the Facebook feed are saying, well, it's that they feel embarrassed that they have to be supporting her. And I'm with you, Tom. I feel anything that brings him down, and she is doing something, speaking out and saying something, unlike so many other people.
Okay.
And that's why,
now that it suits her,
I'm more for him that he, of course, but
that's opportunistic doesn't make the facts wrong that she's an opportunist.
If self-interest gets you off your ass to speak out,
but
I'm
a little irritated with her because she was the one who said, "You will all bow down before him."
Makes it even better that she's seen the light and changed her mind. We always complain about these chimpanzees who will never change their point of view. At least she has the grace to change her point of view.
Or the self-interest, to your point, which is fine. I'll buy it.
If she knew what a racist he was beforehand, and she still said that, then that makes her really deplorable.
But it just makes people opportunistic, and I think anything that distracts him, that causes him agita, maybe the only way he's going to die is by a heart attack or something, God forbid. So, God willing. And
I was going to say, God.
So, Omarosa, keep it up. And I'm just hoping
I'm gonna get
this activates people to vote who didn't vote. They're saying it's not about persuading the Trump people. It's about getting people who didn't vote to step forward and vote blue.
45 million people did not vote.
Right, that's why he won.
You need to vote blue, which is the opposition party, so there can be some checks and balances against the Trumps and Republicans.
Let's skip it with the false fucking equivalency that the blue is just as bad as the red. No. It's so not.
Not right now.
No,
not right now.
Maybe in the future, but let's just deal with this right in front of us.
Midterm elections is when it's all of our griping and posting needs to result in voting.
Yes.
In the midterm elections.
And I got to tell you, at DragCon, end of September, 28th, 29th, 30th, we're going to have a big get out the vote
in
drive.
New York City.
Yes. So that's one reason you should get your tickets now. And the other thing I'm excited about DragCon is there's going to be a series of Rue Talks. He's sitting down with Charles Blow, who's written some of the best, most powerful, most eviscerating
for the failing New York Times
editorials. I'm not anti-New York Times. I'm just saying an unintended side effect of this series. Watch it. See what you think.
I think next week we should wrestle instead of talk. I think we should just fight stuff out.
Can I just say this? That you can get 10% off your RuPaul's DragCon ticket by using the promo code RadioAndy. That's all one word, okay? Tickets at RuPaulsDragCon.com. Thanks for tuning in to the Wow Report. You can listen anytime on Sirius Radio app or watch anytime on the Wow Report. So, same time, same place next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go wow! Are you biting a dildo?
Come on into our radio show.
I'm actually looking for a place I can turn into a toy store for a UPS Stores commercial. I was curious if you'd be interested because this big open space feels kind of opportunistic to me.
Millions of dollars?
No, millions. They're
hundreds.
Real commercials for UPS stores.
On that thing.
He's the man.